Hey everyone, welcome back to Living in Atlanta, the YouTube channel designed to give you a sense of what it's like to live, work, and play in the Atlanta area. My name is Marc Brenner. I'm a real estate professional here in Atlanta, and if you are thinking of moving to the area, I would love to hear from you. All of my contact information is below. If you have a question about a certain neighborhood that you've been looking at, but you need a insider's info on the area, please reach out. I would love to hear from you. Okay guys, so today we're going to be talking about the different neighborhoods in Atlanta. I'm going to be giving you a broad overview of how the city is laid out, how the different neighborhoods are impacted by the interstates that run through them. We're going to be talking about some of the best areas, some of the areas to avoid. I'm also going to briefly touch on some of the suburbs that surround Metro Atlanta. All that and more right now. Okay everyone, so you're thinking of moving to Atlanta or even just visiting, but you don't know where to start. You don't know Buckhead from Bankhead or Brookhaven from the Bluff. No worries, this video is for you. Now, obviously I can't go into detail on every neighborhood in Atlanta, but I'm going to be giving you the broad strokes. I'm going to be talking about how the city is laid out and how locals refer to different areas. So by the end, you should have a much better idea of areas you want to look more into and areas you want to avoid. So let's pull up a map of Atlanta and start breaking down the different sections. Okay, so we have a map of Atlanta pulled up, and basically the first thing you're going to want to notice is this interstate right here, which forms a circle around the city. This is Interstate 285. And for the locals here, we either refer to you as ITP, inside the perimeter, or OTP, outside the perimeter. Okay? So this will impact a lot of things. Property value, it's going to impact your commute. There's good areas and bad areas in both. So it's an important thing to know. So this is 285. And you're going to see two major interstates that run through Atlanta. So you have I-20 running horizontally, and then you have 7585, which runs vertically and then splits here in North Atlanta, 85 to the east and 75 towards the west. So these interstates kind of break up Atlanta into different quadrants, and today we're going to be going through what those different quadrants are and some of the neighborhoods in those quadrants. So let's start off with this first area here, the upper right quadrant. We're going to zoom in a little bit. So you see we have downtown Atlanta here, and then if we look at this upper right quadrant, 20 going here, encapsulated by 285, and then where 7585 breaks off into 400. So this is probably the best quadrant of any that we're going to look at today. There really are no bad neighborhoods anywhere in here. Some of the more wealthy areas are included in this quadrant of Atlanta. So if we look at the upper right quadrant, obviously you have downtown Atlanta right here, and a lot of the hottest in-town neighborhoods are to the right, to the east of 85, which is really interesting because some of the worst areas are just to the west. So even though you're really in town and close to downtown, there's some areas over here where you want to avoid. But to the right, you have some of the hottest areas. So Reynoldstown, Old Fourth Ward, Little Five Points, Edgewood, and Kirkwood, Midtown Atlanta. These are some of the hottest, most desirable places to live, especially for younger folks. There's a ton of stuff to do here. Property values are super high. There's very low amount of inventory right now, but these are very hip, young, desirable places to live. As you head east, you go into the North Druid Hills area towards Emory University, and you have Decatur. You have North Decatur And then if we zoom in, you have downtown Decatur over here in Decatur Heights, which is obviously a very desirable place to live in its own right. Downtown Decatur is a great area full of restaurants, tons of things to do over here. One of my personal favorites, the DeKalb Farmers Market. Really cool farmers market's huge. So staying in this quadrant, if we go south a little bit, you see East Lake, the East Lake Golf Course, which they do hold a PGA event here every year. Again, this is a really good area. Now, as you pass over Candler Road, this becomes a little bit of a different neighborhood. I wouldn't say it's bad, but it's not quite as expensive or desirable as some of the other areas we've just went over. I think it's a great place to look if you're a younger person, if you have less of a budget for a house. Decatur, city of Decatur, and unincorporated Decatur could be a great place to look. Ton of old brick ranches here that you can purchase in the 200s. And if we go north, Avondale Estates is a really nice area. Up to Toco Hills. These are all excellent areas. I'm going to scroll out here. And you have Brookhaven, which is one of the highest end neighborhoods in Atlanta. So all these areas are great. They all have different levels of connection to different areas in the city, but you're close to everything here. Doraville Chamblee have really exploded lately. There's a ton of development going on. It's kind of one of the more affordable areas. You're still in the perimeter, but we're seeing prices go crazy right here. Lots of family moving into this area. All right, let's go west to this northwest quadrant. So again, using 75, 85, and we'll just use 400 as a marker. So this quadrant right here. So you see you're inside the perimeter, so you're very close to everything, which makes it desirable. Very close to downtown Atlanta. But it's a different story than the upper right-hand quadrant. So some of the areas closer to downtown. So you have the Georgia Tech campus, which is a good area. You have Home Park and Atlantic Station, really popular retail destinations. Atlantic Station is a place where a ton of people go see movies, tons of restaurants, great walking area. But as you head west, you have a mixture. You have historically some of the worst areas in Atlanta, like Bankhead, around English Avenue over here. And the new Mercedes-Benz Stadium is right in this area. So these areas really haven't gentrified yet. It's not an area that I would classify as safe to live in. It is changing very rapidly, and property values, even in this dangerous areas, are going up quite a bit. Now, as we keep heading west, you really get a mixed bag. So you see 20 going here. So some of these areas are really some of the up and coming hot areas. So if you're one of those young couples who maybe has a lower budget, you feel comfortable in the city, you feel you're not spooked by sort of a transitional neighborhood, you may want to look into an area like Westlake, Mosley Park. We're going to talk about Westview when we get down to this southwest quadrant. So I don't want you to get the impression that you should completely stay away from this part of Atlanta. Again, everything is going to depend on who you are, what you're needing out of a home and an area. Like I said, if you're a younger couple comfortable living in a more transitional part of the neighborhood, you could do really well. Your dollar is going to go a little farther in these areas, and the appreciation that you'll see from some of the homes in this areas could be tremendous. But Joseph E. Boone Boulevard is an important place to keep your eye on. So, really a lot of these neighborhoods that border Joseph E. Boone are still pretty rough, honestly. Significant amount of crime. Same thing with Donald Lee Holloway Parkway, Bankhead. So, but then again, Grove Park is changing quite a bit because this Bellwood Quarry is a really exciting development that's going on in Atlanta. This is actually going to be turned into the largest park in Atlanta, much bigger than even Piedmont Park. So you're seeing a lot of investors and younger folk buying in this area because they know it's rapidly changing. And again, as you go west, you kind of have a mixed bag. Collier Heights, Center Hill, Almond Park. So one thing I always say about Atlanta is it's very micro. Your experience can change from subdivision to subdivision, street to street, and house to house. You really can't just label an entire neighborhood A, B, C, D, or F. So when you're looking at a neighborhood and looking to purchase a home, you really need to go there in person or have a representative be your boots on the ground to tell you, what the area is like, how the homes in that area are maintained, what the foot traffic is like. Talk to neighbors and just get a sense for what that area is like. Now, as we move north in this northwest quadrant, things do get much nicer. So, you see we have Buckhead, Peachtree Heights West. These are some of the most wealthy, most desirable places to live inside Metro Atlanta. Some of the highest home values. They're incredibly safe. The schools are good. There's mansions in these areas. Your home values are going to be 500K plus, up into the high millions. And a big reason for that is your proximity to downtown and midtown Atlanta. So all of these areas, Buckhead, going up into Chastain, very desirable places to live. We'll talk about Sandy Springs in a little bit. So this is really your high-end, wealthy, really high property value area. If your net worth is a little higher, if you want just flat out the wealthiest, most desirable place to live in Atlanta, you're probably going to want to look here. As you are on the west side of 75, again, this is a bit of a mixed bag. I think it's a lot like city of Decatur area in that you can still get good value. Working class areas, still transitional, but it's hard to give a general overview. Vinings is a great area. Really has taken off lately. It's right by Cumberland Mall. You see SunTrust Park here where the Braves play. So this area is awesome. And then, these areas here, you have a mixed bag, some bad, some fine. All right, let's move south to our southwest quadrant. So we're going to look at here, again, bordering 285 up to 75 to 20. So this southwest quadrant. So again, you have a pretty mixed bag. This area can be great for an investor because there's a lot of economic development going on around Hartsfield-Jackson, which is our main airport, one of the busiest airports in the world. I actually really like College Park, Hapeville, and East Point, which make up what we call the Tri-Cities. So I think there's a lot of value to be had here. Again, if you're not working with a 500K plus budget, you want a place that's going to appreciate really well but isn't extremely dangerous. I think these are great areas to look in. Your proximity to Hartsfield-Jackson and yet your proximity to downtown Atlanta makes it a great place to live, in my opinion. You can get close to anywhere, but your home values aren't out of control. Now, again, everything is such a mixed bag. So going north, right up into downtown Atlanta. So Pittsburgh and Mechanicsville, transitional areas. Pittsburgh more so than Mechanicsville. So it's just going to really vary street to street and house to house. There are some incredible developments like Pittsburgh Yards. This area is going to be super hot well, it's hot now for investors, but as an extremely desirable place to live for homeowners, 5 to 10 years, this will be the next hot neighborhood. Adair Park is super desirable already. West End, Westview, these are some of the hottest areas in Atlanta because there's still some value to be had, but the geography, the location to everything just make them super desirable places. They're rapidly gentrifying and changing a ton. Now, if you go south a little bit, some of these areas get worse. Oakland City, Venetian Hills, there's good areas, there are bad areas. There's economic development going on everywhere. So Oakland City, you have the Lee and White development around the Beltline, which is right here. Fort McPherson, where Tyler Perry has his studios, there's a ton of economic development in the works over here. And then as you go west, things start to expand a little bit. It gets a little less dense, and you get a mixed bag. But there's still some good value to be had here. So going south here, taking another look, East Point has some really bad areas, and it has some areas that are totally fine. A lot of people tell you to absolutely run away from East Point. Again, I would just say it depends on who you are and what you're looking for in the city. College Park's a unique area. There's some bad areas to College Park, and then there's historic College Park, which has, $1 million homes. So again, it's a mixed bag. You see Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport here. So if you do live in this area, geographically, you're just going to be extremely close to everything. All right, let's look at this southeast quadrant right here, starting towards downtown. So you have some incredible historic neighborhoods like Grant Park, which is an amazing place to live. The zoo is right here. Grant Park's probably my favorite park in the city. East Atlanta Village, these are super hot, desirable places to live. Ormwood Park, tons of young couples, young families live in these areas. You can see downtown Atlanta here. You're close to everything. Really high home values in these areas. And then Summerhill and Peoplestown, which is the area that I live in. These areas are transitioning like crazy. Georgia State University recently bought Turner Field, which has had a tremendous impact on this area. So these are all great places to buy a home. It can be challenging, inventory is low, and prices are pretty high, but these are definitely extremely desirable places to live. Now, as you go south, these are some areas that really are still transitioning quite a bit, and honestly, you probably want to avoid if safety is a concern for you. So, historic South Atlanta, Polar Rock, Lakewood Heights, Lakewood, Thomasville Heights, all of these areas, they have some pretty sketchy parts, to be honest. Now, on a grand scale, I think these areas are going to continue to transition just because of where they are geographically. I think they're going to be great areas eventually, but right now, you definitely have some pretty bad pockets in those areas. So all in all, this section of the city, not so much Gresham Park, but right here is probably an area to avoid. And then as you go east, so you're back over into City of Decatur and unincorporated Decatur, Gresham Park and Panthersville, density decreases a little bit, and there's still some great value, just like Candler, McAfee, and Belvedere Park. Like I said, ton of brick ranches in the 2s and 300s here. It's relatively safe. I think that could be a great place for a young couple to go look towards buying. So that's everything ITP. If we look OTP, the majority of your most desirable suburbs are going to be north of the perimeter. So Marietta, Sandy Springs, Roswell, Alpharetta, Johns Creek. These are really desirable, high-end areas, great schools, lots of money in these areas, high price points. If you're talking suburbs to the east of Atlanta, Stone Mountain, Tucker, Little Burn, Conyers, Lithonia, Conyers out here, these are more working class areas. Could be a great place to buy. It's relatively safe. The schools vary quite a bit, but there's definitely some good value to be found here. If you look south of the perimeter, Riverdale, Forest Park, Ellenwood, Union City, these areas are still transitioning quite a bit. There are some dangerous pockets. There are some safe pockets. Your dollar's going to go further here. There's some new construction homes in Fairburn and down in McDonough. In the high 100s, you can have a new construction home. And you still are a really easy drive to not only the airport, but downtown Atlanta. And then west of Atlanta, the suburbs, so Mableton is a transitional area, Lithia Springs. These areas to the northwest, there's a lot of good areas in here. There's a few bad ones. So Smyrna is an excellent place, super hot. Mableton, Lithia Springs, Austell. So they vary quite a bit, but there's a lot of good value to be had here. Okay, so there you have it, guys. Neighborhoods in Atlanta. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you liked this video, please hit like and tap that subscribe button. I'm going to continue to be putting out a ton of great content all about what it's like to live, work, and play in Atlanta.